we're excited. It's this world, this life that we live. It gets to be so exciting. It gets to be whatever you create it to be. And yeah, I think dabbling and having fun with other people, as long as that is your jam, like there's no harm in that, you know? I'm Rachel, and you're listening to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. All right, guys, I don't mean to get too personal with you, but you know, that's my jam. When I come across a product or something that I believe in, that I fall in love with, I have to share it with you guys. So that is why I am interrupting this episode today to tell you about Awkward Essentials, which is a company that created the drip stick, aka a cum sponge. Yes. Okay, so hear me out. When we decided that we were going to be a child-free family and Danny went to get his vasectomy, that allowed us new opportunities to have some more fun in the bedroom, and specifically fun around finishing and what that would look like for him. So afterwards, when this would happen, I would be walking around and it would just be like gooey. I feel like I just left the gynecologist's office, like dripping. And no matter how much I wiped, how much I peed, it still just felt ugh to me. All right. Then my friend told me about the drip stick, and I have been using these for over a year now. I'm obsessed. So this is the original after sex sponge, and it is specifically for absorbing excess cum. It is super soft. It's a medical grade sponge, and it quickly soaks up. Like literally, I insert it, I spin it around a couple times, I take it out, I throw it away, boom, I'm done, and then no more drippy drip throughout the day. It is seriously, it is so good. Now, I realize this is not for everybody, but for those of you that this is for you, I highly recommend going to going to awkwardessentials.com. You can find the link in the show here, and using code Rachel 91347. That's Rachel 91347. Use this code at checkout and it's going to save you 10% on your purchase. Of course, DM me if you have any questions. I recommend getting the 20 pack or the 100 pack if you really, really like to have sex a lot. And you can also get a little trial size where they send you just a few to try out. They're super affordable too. So go check these out. Again, code is Rachel 91347, awkwardessentials.com. Hello and welcome back for another episode here where we have an amazing guest coming on today, Stephanie Sellars. I am excited. She is a filmmaker. I think this will be the first time I've had somebody on that has produced a film, and especially a sex positive film, which I'm super excited to dig into this conversation with her. And all right, let me share with you her bio before we get into this interview today. So Stephanie Sellars is a New York-based writer, filmmaker, and performer. She holds 2 MFAs in film from Columbia University School of Arts and in writing from Bennington Writing Seminars. Her award-winning, oh my gosh, so excited! Her award-winning films screened at many festivals, and her debut feature film, Lust, Life, Love, that's what we're going to be discussing today, is distributed by 1091 Pictures on VOD platforms. This is very techy. I hope I'm not botching any of this. But her writing has been published in Hobart Pulp, Entropy, Movie Maker, the former Anti-Weekly, New York Press, and elsewhere. She is the recipient of fellowships from Yaldo, International Literary Seminars, and Vermont Studio Center. She can be heard singing on Spotify. Yes, bitch. All right, singing on Spotify, and her jazz album Girl Who Loves is available wherever music is sold online. We will make sure to link that in the show notes for you to her Spotify. That is super, super exciting. You can find Stephanie and all of her work at www.lustlifelove.com. That's all one word, lustlifelove.com. And you can find her on Instagram at _Stephanie Sellars, and it's Sellars. Stephanie Sellars, Stephanie. Guess I should clarify that too, but you can see it based on the title of the show. So go ahead and give her a follow, especially if you enjoy this episode today. I am, definitely excited. We might dabble in the topics of polyamory and non-monogamy a little bit, but definitely get to hear all of the juicy goodness about her film. So without further ado, let's jump on into this episode. Thanks for listening, y'all. All right. Hello, Stephanie. Again, thank you so much for coming on to the show today to talk about your film. I'm really, really excited to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. As I was saying, and when I recorded the intro, you're my first filmmaker, I think, on the show. I get a lot of authors and whatnot, and creators and influencers and other people in the sex industry, but first time having somebody that's created a film. So I'm very excited to dig into your story and hear really how this even came about for you.
Woohoo, yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it. This film, the development started a long time ago. I was in film school and, coming up with screenplay ideas. And I always wanted to do a film about polyamory and non-monogamy because I had a lot of personal experience with it. And my screenwriting advisor, started asking me like some personal questions, like not too personal, like, oh, he was just very curious because the character was not so much based on me. The main character was more like a lawyer, right? And I'm a creative person, and he started to hear more about my experience. He's like, well, why don't you make her more like you? That sounds more interesting. And started writing the screenplay. It's about a decade ago, like 12 years ago. And it developed a lot and changed a lot, many different versions, inspired by my experience with polyamory, like starting as a solo polyamorist. And I didn't even really know that terminology back then, but I was, pretty independent, like didn't have a primary partner, but I had multiple partners who were all aware of each other. And so I put that into the film. And then it was also inspired by my relationship with this man who was married and monogamous when we met, and had zero experience with this. And I kind of seduced him into my world. And but then it became complicated when he got more excited about it and wanted to do things that challenged me, that brought up a lot of jealousy and insecurity for me. So like a lot of the film tracks that journey. Veronica, the character's name, her journey through like starting at a place where she already had all this experience and felt like she really knew herself. Her identity was solid. Like I am this free polyamorous bisexual woman. I write about my experiences. She has a blog in the film, and feeling very empowered with that. But then when she is in a relationship with someone who challenges her, then there are a lot of problems that come up. And so that's all true. Like the specificity of scenes and certain characters have been fictionalized, but it's very much inspired by my experience.
Yeah, that's incredible. And for people that are listening that are already intrigued, they can go to your website to find the film, or are there other places where it's available for people to watch?
Yeah. If you go to lustlifelove.com, you'll find a link to a site that will take you to all the VOD platforms where you can buy or rent the film. It's on Amazon, Apple TV, iTunes, Tubi, Google Play, a whole bunch. So it's all over the place. Yeah.
That's really great. And so do you feel, getting into your story a little bit more, do you feel at a young age that more non-monogamy was something that you were drawn to? Or, and specifically, I'm curious, what was your parental upbringing like? Were your parents open, or were they monogamous? And kind of where did you even learn about this at the first point?
Yeah, my upbringing was quite the opposite, like very conventional Christian, like not fundamentalist, but just very conventional Christian upbringing where, monogamy was the status quo and there was no discussion of any alternatives to that. And when I was a teenager, I think my father had some affairs and I was aware of it and I shared it with my brother, and we considered confronting them about it, but then didn't want to, destroy their marriage. But it was just horrible to just experience that deception and betrayal and have it. I could see how it was affecting my mother, and like I think she also knew but was in denial. And so I think that really started it for me. It was like, I am not going to live my life like that. I am going to be honest. And then I was also like a budding artist and, yearning for a variety of experiences and cultures and wanting to express myself in through my creativity, but it also as that also kind of fed into my sexuality, my sexual expression. um, I didn't want to be limited. I didn't want to be constrained by deception and betrayal that was so painful in my family and brushed under the rug. Yeah.
And especially at such a young age, that's where our minds are being shaped and all of that. And so I think what a great realization for you to be able to make, that you wanted something different for yourself. Like you said, you wanted to have relationships that were open and honest and open in more ways than one, which is really neat. And so when what was like your first couple experiences? Like you said, you kind of went out in a solo way as somebody that was polyamorous. What was dating like for you, and kind of having that conversation with other people?
Yeah. Well, I started off monogamous because I didn't know anything else. And it was just more like testing the waters in my early relationship. Like, what's wrong if I flirt with other people? Like, what's wrong with that? Or just questioning, a lot of questioning, trying to be monogamous, but feeling constrained. And then when I like my first love, like my first like real true love, that's when I brought up the subject of threesomes and my curiosity, because I hadn't been with women yet at that point. Like I had curiosity, I was like 20. And my boyfriend was really intrigued. He was French. He was like, yeah, I would love to explore that, but we didn't know how to, and it never happened. This was like pre-social media, pre dating apps. So and then for the rest of my 20s, I just went into promiscuity. It was more about just having a lot of sex with a lot of different people than being polyamorous. And then my next serious relationship, he was actually interested in having threesomes, and that was my gateway. And he introduced me to another couple, this woman who was a friend of his who was bisexual, and we had an experience, the four of us together, and that was my first experience. And I knew then I wanted more. I wanted more of this. And he and I had some other experiences together, but he ultimately didn't want to go beyond that. It was like he ultimately wanted to be monogamous, I think, in the end, or just like, oh, we're just exploring together. It turned him on. But then once I started to have more desires, he felt threatened. It was kind of like the opposite of what happens with Daniel and Veronica in the film. So the roles reversed. And after that relationship, as that was ending, that's when I met the man who inspired the Daniel character in the film. And but in the interim, I was really being more solo poly. And I had attended some sex parties, and so that was part of my experience as well. And I don't know if your viewers or your listeners are aware, there's some differences between all of these different lifestyles or relationship identities. Like, you can be polyamorous and not go to sex parties. It could just be like how you approach relationships, right? But then a lot of polyamorous people do go to sex parties because they enjoy like sexual exploration, but there are people who go to sex parties and swinging, um, and but they're not interested in emotional connection.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm kind of like in the overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's a pretty important indicator of polyamory is you're establishing emotional connection with many people? It's
Right.
not just, what some would call a fuck buddy.
Right. Yes, that is the difference between polyamory and swinging or uh, casual sex. Or, I mean, I guess with casual sex, you could have some connection with the partners or friends with benefits, but it's very clearly, I mean, the word breaks down to many loves. I believe it's a combination of Greek and Latin, poly meaning many, amory meaning love.
Mhm.
So yeah, the emotional connection is really important.
Yeah. I think in my opinion, the word is just a very beautiful word in and of itself. Uh,
Mhm.
Thanks for that breakdown. I actually didn't know that was the meaning of it, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned sex parties, so I'm curious, is this something that is shown in the film? Is there any scenes that
Yeah.
involve parties?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. There are multiple sex party scenes, and they're very authentic, because I wanted to make a film that was not like, eyes wide shut, like an outsider perspective of or fantasy of an orgy. The film is based on actual events. I mean, the party scenes in the film are based on actual sex parties in New York City, and even shot in locations where the parties have taken place. And a lot of the extras were part of that scene. The scenes were shot with, the main characters. Everything was simulated, but and some of the orgy scenes, the extras were actually being sexual. Like
Mm.
they consented to do that, and I was really grateful. They got paid a little money, but really it was more because they wanted to participate in this movie, because it hasn't really been portrayed on film in an authentic way.
And that's why I specifically asked, because I was hoping the answer was yes, because yeah, I've never attended a sex party. It is definitely on the list of desires for us. And it's yeah, you see it in movies or TV shows and whatnot. And then when talking with people that have actually been to sex parties, are like, yeah, that's not at all what it is actually like in real life. And you use the word fantasy of what somebody would fantasize an orgy, looking like, which is great, but there's, that very real difference of fantasy versus reality, and what it would actually look like.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If someone who had not had the experience that I had made a film like this, it would just not be authentic. I mean, they even if they didn't, that wasn't the director's lifestyle, they would have to like do some serious research.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I appreciate that you are creating this from such an authentic place. I think, yeah, I have not yet watched the film, but I'm excited to after now listening to even just this half of the conversation.
Yay.
And so you mentioned also this concept of jealousy that comes up that happened, for with your experience personally, but also in the film. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering if we can speak more to that, because in talking with other guests and friends and colleagues that are in this lifestyle, jealousy is something that can come up, I think, pretty regularly. And I also think that jealousy is a fear of a lot of people that are wanting to maybe dip their toe into a relationship style like this. So can you just speak a little bit either to your personal experience or the film, in the dynamics of how jealousy has came up?
Yeah. It's very normal to feel jealousy, whether you're polyamorous or monogamous. It doesn't change with polyamory. I think some polyamorous people like experience less jealousy than others. They're just wired differently, and I think a lot of it has to do with your attachment style. whether you have secure attachment or insecure, which is with jealousy, it's usually connected to like anxious attachment where you have a fear of abandonment. Um, so it's just more about managing it than trying to avoid it altogether because it's impossible to do that. And you can manage it with communication and boundaries. So like knowing yourself enough to know what you're comfortable with sexually and in relationships. And there may be certain sexual things that you don't want your partner to do with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this term fluid bonded that is known among poly people, or it's usually with like a primary couple that they're and they say that they're fluid bonded, meaning that they don't have unprotected sex with anyone else.
Mm.
So that could be a boundary, for instance, and then there are non-sexual things like, I don't want you to take trips with any of your other partners.
Mm.
But then you get into like hierarchical territory and kind of controlling behavior. So it's like finding the balance between what is honoring my comfort, my boundaries, but also like not trying to control
Mm-hmm.
my other partners.
Yeah.
So it's very tricky.
That's honestly a great point to make. And I'm glad that you brought up the communication aspect, because in coaching with clients that are wanting to step into this, I feel that trust and communication are two of the most important things when it comes to this, because in a monogamous relationship, right, you don't have these other people, really people kind of getting in your way or like pulling at your partner's attention.
Mm-hmm.
You may, but they're not giving into it, right? That is maybe not even a thought in their mind. And so with polyamory or really any sort of non-monogamy, it's that constant conversation that has to happen around the boundaries and the balance and what you're okay with. And I think check-ins too, because we are sexually fluid people, right? And so what I might be okay with right now, 3 months from now, I might be dancing up against a challenge to have with, or vice versa, something that I'm not okay with now, maybe after experiences and comfortability sets in, then maybe now, okay, I'm okay with pushing this edge a little bit further even.
Yeah, that is definitely something that comes up in the film with, just because I said this before doesn't mean I feel this now, and I've experienced that in my own relationships. And when people are not as experienced with this, they risk making assumptions like, oh, well, you said this was okay. And 3 months later, like, no, I actually changed my feelings about that. It doesn't mean you're a hypocrite. It's just acknowledging that, yeah, we are fluid in our sexual desires and in our emotional needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the communication is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's often this phrase that I hear, sort of the concept of asking for forgiveness later, like act now, ask for forgiveness later. And I think that is not something that should come up in polyamory,
No.
or again, any non-monogamous
Yeah.
situations. And what I've heard from a previous guest is that when she comes up against these situations where she's, in her head, it's like, I don't know if my partner is going to be okay with this, she reminds herself that there can always be a next time. So it's like not acting in that moment, which I know, like, our sexual intuition, our sexual instincts are so strong, so primal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's hard in those situations to say no to that temptation.
Yeah.
But such a respectful, healthy thing that you can do with a partner, or with your main person afterwards, and be like, I came up against this and I'm interested in trying this, talking through it. And if it's a yes for both people, then you have future sexual experiences that you get to try that thing with.
Yeah. I mean, it does work for some people who agree to do whatever they feel in the moment. Or like maybe their agreements are just, I just want you to always come back to me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't want you to stay overnight, or it's really important to me that we have intimacy, like after you're on a date with someone else, it's important to me that you and I have intimacy within 48 hours or something after that. I don't know. It's some people don't have any boundaries. I mean, there are relationship anarchists where it's like, whatever, we agree that anything goes
Mm-hmm.
and everything is in the moment and not attached to anyone, or, I love you and I honor you, I respect you, but we agree that we are sexually free beings and we do whatever we want. Some people approach it that way, and for some, it works.
Yeah.
For others, it's a disaster.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And of course, not to judge anyone in whatever you're choosing as your
Yeah,
boundary, because as you said, it will be different for everybody. Everybody's level is going to be, um, yeah, different from each other. And so just because one couple or group is doing it this way, that does not mean that that's going to be the way that's going to work for you or that will work for you.
right, exactly.
What else is there other things that you would like to touch on around the film or your experiences or anything that we didn't cover that you were hoping to?
Just that the film is not a PSA for polyamory. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, yeah, you watch this film and then you feel like, okay, polyamory is better than monogamy and I gotta try it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more nuanced. There's a lot of gray area. And so for people who are polyamorous, who have that experience, they'll probably have a different experience with the film than people who don't have the experience. But I think regardless of where you're coming from, what your experience is with relationships and sex, that it will definitely bring up questions
Mm-hmm.
and, make you think. And I think the most important message is that you have to know yourself and love yourself first before um, investing in other relationships. So it's really whether you choose monogamy or polyamory or something in between, being honest with yourself and loving yourself will make it a little easier to uphold that with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Loving yourself first and knowing yourself first. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so good. And is the film something that you would recommend if people are in a relationship that they watch with their partner or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very sexy. A lot of great sex scenes, and just I think it's something that will bring up some talking points,
Mhm.
with couples who watch it together, and maybe it'll open up conversations that they're something that they've been curious about, or at least one person's been curious about, and
Mhm.
it could help open up the conversation. But even though it's obviously there's conflict because it's a film, it's a drama, there's conflict in it, but it's also very sexy and entertaining. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to watch it with my husband. I know there's recent things that we've watched, like Sex Life on Netflix and
Mm-hmm.
How to Build a Sex Room, even, these different things that come up, or 365 Days, just very sexy films. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is fun. And we like to listen to erotica together and just, books, even audibles and stuff together around the topics. And
Mm-hmm.
that's again me being in this space and doing this work. I feel like I kind of nerd out over these things. And I'm like, that, and could you ever see yourself doing this? And
Yeah.
yeah, we're going on a couples retreat actually next month, and they have a dominatrix coming in, and so we'll just, yeah, it'll be a whole new experience for us to go through some of these things. So we're excited. It's this world, this life that we live, it gets to be so exciting. It gets to be whatever you create it to be. And yeah, I think dabbling and having fun with other people, as long as that is your jam, like there's no harm in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as long as there's consent all around,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not hurting anyone, and people, as I'm saying that, it's not hurting anyone, people are going to get hurt because it's just what happens in love. But I mean, it's not deliberately. You're not like, I'm talking about like BDSM, like, because you brought up dominatrix. Is there some BDSM in the film?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the fetish is, as long as it's not hurting anyone in the sense that, some people who want to experience pain, but it's their desire. So it's not hurting them per se. But if you're doing something that, basically what I'm saying is that nothing is off the table. I think as long as, people there isn't like abuse happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are tools out there I have available on my website, a want, will, won't list, BDSM tests. Like there are things out there that people can do to figure out what are your interests, what are your kinks even. And yeah, so great. And we'll link everything in the show notes for people to be able to find the film. I'm excited to watch the film. I'll tag you on social media when we do.
Great.
And yeah, thank you again for coming on and talking about your I almost said show, but your film.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you really fucking loved it, make sure to tag me on social media at @TheRachelMain. I'll see you next week.